I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Capital Planning Committee on Wednesday, March 2nd at 4:06 p.m. Could I have a roll call, please?
Gerald Mazik is here.
And Chris Nosella.
And Veronica Kell and Mike.
Mike Roscoe via Zoom.
Thank you. All right, we have a quorum. Mike, there are new documents. Are they available anywhere?
On my computer. You know, I have Mike's email address. I'll send them out right now.
Mike, what's your email address?
Yeah, my email address is going to be, hold on, I'll get to the one that I can actually easily do it. Harbor, H-A-R-B-O-R, Mike, 1732 @gmail.com.
Yeah, these don't even have like page numbers, so we can work together on this.
You're gonna have to get
Okay, so we're going to take a minute here while
I'm just
Ross sends you the information, Mike, so that we're all looking at the same thing.
Perfect, because I have the one that you sent last week with the updated notes and everything.
Yeah, I think there's, well, this is similar, but it has a little bit more in it, so thank you.
We can't do that.
Can we just do this, Veronica? Can we officially call page one of these three documents, the one that starts with the fire EMS as 1, the one that does recap by departments as 2, and
I only have 2 documents.
you don't have 3? I have 3. Oh, yeah.
There's several pages.
Yeah, 3 separate pages.
All right, so in the upper left-hand corner, it says 22822 version.
Right.
Yeah.
That you're calling document 1?
Well, they all say that.
No, they don't.
Mine do.
Yeah, they do.
Mine says 22322 version.
No, I said
Yeah,
228.
take this one then. That's a new one. I don't know if you got that one.
I have that for
Yeah.
this. Okay, and then for the small one?
The small one's over here. But I'm just looking at these 3 documents, just so we're all on the same page. If we call this one document 1, because it's got the most writing on it.
Okay.
And we'll go with the second one,
It's a
is
little-
document 2. It's got,
All I got is 1.
Why wouldn't you just go with page 2?
we don't, page 2, whichever you prefer.
Page
You
2
don't have it either. All right.
and page 3.
Yeah, just so we're all on the same page here. So
This is the
When we know what we're
5-year
talking about.
capital project.
Okay.
On the lower left, it says 5-year
I'm
capital
still-
projects, FY 23 through 28. And then the other one, the smaller document,
we'll go with page 3, right? Just so we're all on the same page. We know what we're looking at.
Is this page 2?
page 1,
That's
page 2,
page
page
2.
3.
It's page 2 and this is page 1.
Where's page 2?
Page 3 is that one. You not have that one?
Page
Yeah, you
3
got that
looks
one.
like the,
Yeah,
Okay.
the little, oh, you doing this one or the other one?
that's page 2.
That's page 2.
Okay, just let's give when we get to any page we're on, let's just give the name of the title so we'll know. Because apparently we've all got different selections of page 1, 2, and 3.
There's different ways to
Okay.
call it.
Yeah.
All right,
All right, that
all
one.
right, so we'll do this way. Look at that.
So we're gonna start with EMS? Fine. I have a question on that.
We're just waiting for the, I guess,
I'm waiting for
yeah.
Ross.
I almost said you. We've been waiting a long time for that.
Awesome. I just got it open. Sorry, I was doing like a security
Okay.
scan
No,
thing.
no,
No problem.
that's okay. You got it, Ross. Thank you.
Doors are locked. Not having to lock the doors.
Oh, on the way up. Well, that's right, it closes at 4 now, right? Did it always close at 4? Or did we change that earlier?
Close at 5, huh?
Yeah.
I don't
It's
Yeah.
closed at 4 since August, or since we reopened
Since we
the
reopened.
building.
Yeah,
That's been the plan.
and thank you for removing masks. I appreciate that.
Well,
That was a fun thing.
Your recommendation?
I know, I appreciate that.
Thanks.
I couldn't have one more person come up to me in this building and go, why are we kicking these minutes?
yeah. It's for everybody. It was for everybody's
Protection.
Absolutely, that's why we did it.
I'm glad.
If it's okay, I have a hard stop at 5:30.
Okay, so let's get started.
Okay.
Okay.
So looking at the plan, the long sheet, the one that has 2/28/22 version at the top, Townsend Capital Improvement Plan, CIP FY 2023 Capital Planning Committee Worksheet.
Right.
All right, so this is the worksheet, and Ross, how is this different from the smaller one?
Well, the smaller one shows you the 5-year plan, where the long sheet shows you what's in for the FY 23 requests, and it's broken out by funding sources.
Okay, so can we look at the small page first, the 5-year plan first?
Yes.
So Mike, do you have that?
It's actually probably the first tab to the left on that spreadsheet.
Yep, I have it.
You have it, okay. All right, so these are the 5-year requests. So from the CONSCOM, they want a land use tablet with a data plan. So the $600 for this year includes the purchase, a hand auger for soil sampling, and a Munsell soil color book. So, and the hand auger and the soil color book is a one-time purchase. So,
She's on this one.
yeah, because that's for
Okay.
all 5 years. And then going out the land use tablet, because you need the data plan for each of the years. So that just continues on $50 a year. My only question, Ross, is why is this in capital?
They submitted it both in their operating budget and in capital, or left it in capital, because it is a one-time purchase. I mean, it's below the threshold for true capital, but it's a one-time purchase. And with the amount of effort we're trying to wean down the operating budget, every $1,050 helps.
Okay, so was it removed then from the operating budget?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So that's CONSCOM. Should we, do we want to vote on these as we go? So I guess is there a motion, and we can look at funding sources in a little bit. I'm assuming that this one is free cash.
Yes.
Funding source for this is free cash. So is there a motion to approve the CONSCOM capital items for FY 23 through FY 27?
I'll make a motion to vote the $1,250.
And is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion?
I think it's 1,050, but
Yeah.
You're voting those 3 items.
We're voting those 3 items.
7, 8, 9, 10.
And so when I say voting them, that we would fund these, and then we would include the progression for the 5-year capital plan.
It's 1,050.
Yes.
Yeah.
I actually would suggest that the follow-on $50 end up in subsequent operating budgets, but
Yeah.
we can work that next year. You can work that next year.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'll just leave it as is. Okay.
I think, I think what you're really voting is the FY 23 requests.
Okay.
The rest is more or less FYI, because I think they could all change next year.
Well, they could, but just to have something there. So, all right. So we have a motion on the floor. Any other discussion? Mike?
I have nothing to bring up on that.
Okay, Mike, Andrea, do you have a question?
Yeah, since it doesn't meet the criteria for capital planning, why don't you just make it an article?
I suppose that's another way to do it.
It
But
will be an article. I mean, all of these capital requests will be an article. I'm going to suggest it's going to be one large article with individual line items for the voters to vote yes or no on.
We're basically just recommending. We're not passing
Right.
anything. So
Right.
So
We
these are
can't
all
This
article
goes,
articles.
these
anything.
recommendations
Are all
go to the
articles.
Board of Selectmen, and then
Yeah.
the Board of Selectmen bring forward an article. For
Yeah.
the capital
So there will be a
request.
capital warrant article that assuming you vote
Right.
both these, will include all of these items.
Okay. All right, then, all those in favor, roll call vote, please.
Gerald Mazekas, yes?
Chris Nocelli, yes.
Veronica
Mike Roscoe, yes.
And Mike, yes. Okay, thanks, Mike. All right, looking at highway.
Would you assume we'd like to do fire now since Gary's here, or?
Sure. Let's go down to fire. That's a little bit more than midway down, maybe 2/3 down the page on the front page here. And what we have is, I'm just going to go with it, Gary, and then you can jump in when there's questions. Replace 1995 engine at $745,000. Replace the 1995 Forest. Oh, let me just go back. For FY 2023, we are replacing the 1995 engine and replacing the 2007 Car 2. Those are the two for this year, the two requests from fire. And then if you look at the progression for 2024, it's to replace the 1995 forestry. Then in 2025, replace the 2002 engine. And in 2026, the protective bumper gear replacement and FY27 air pack replacement, if not replaced with a grant. And then there is replace 2007 engine, but I don't see it on.
Yeah, that fell off the chart. FY28. Wasn't that in 2023 too?
Replacing 2 fire engines?
No, I think I had replaced car 2
It's not going to happen.
in FY23.
Yeah. What is car 2? Is that like the deputy chief's car or the one that's sitting behind the fire station in the snow?
We don't have, no, there shouldn't be anything sitting behind the fire station, so.
Oh, there was the other day.
Car 2 is the old paramedic truck.
Oh, that's what you call a car. Okay.
I'll do it.
So they use it for running errands and doing things.
Yeah.
And right now we've got the old chief's car that's sitting in the station too, that we haven't assigned out of duty.
Yeah. That must be the one that was sitting in the snow.
That hasn't been outside.
Okay, so just looking at these, what's the funding source, Ross?
The fire engine, I'm proposing to borrow that money. And we've clarified with the treasurer collector that we can borrow $745,000. We thought there was $1 million cutoff.
Yeah.
It turns out we can borrow that amount. So we probably do a band for the first year, which is bond anticipation note, and then borrow it the second year. Actually,
I have a question, Gary. We're replacing the 95 truck, right?
Not this year.
Not this, well, no, 23, yeah.
Yeah, we are.
Oh, that's
Do we take anything off of that truck and put it on the new truck? Basically, a lot of stuff, right? Okay.
and that's figured into your cost.
And that's figured in the cost.
So I could bore you with details.
Yeah, that's-
What engine number is this?
What's that?
What engine number?
So engine 2 is the 95 and it's slated to be replaced in 2015. Engine 3 is the 2002 that should be replaced this year. In my opinion, and there's 50 guys down there, they may have 50 different opinions.
Mhm.
I think engine 2 is a better engine than engine 3. So the configuration might be a little bit different. And I don't expect, based on looking at Veronica's shock when I said 2 this year, but when I was talking to manufacturers, there's 2 to 3 year delay right now to get an engine.
To get an engine.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's not, you call them today and say, I want an engine, sit back and relax. But you can get them on fast track and you can get them on other ways of getting them. And then you can save on engineering, which guys may disagree with me there too. But if an engine manufacturer manufactures engines for companies across, fire companies across the country, I think they got a pretty good idea. I don't want to say that we need to go to them and say, this has to be special. It adds $60,000 and it adds could add up to a year, depends on how special we want to make.
Right.
If we buy a truck that, or an engine that they've got on a fast track program, we could save almost $100,000, $60,000 for engineering and $40,000 on the cost of that truck. And then if you added a second engine to that, the economy of scale becomes even greater. So we do have 2 engines that are going into that abyss, if you will. But I do, even though the age is there, even though ISO may not like it or look at it favorably, I may try to keep engine 2, even though it's the oldest engine, as a reserve engine, whereas engine 3, I think, is more mechanical issues than engine 2. So that's yet to be determined. However, we are in the place that we need to give serious consideration to picking up an engine, and I would probably fast track it to see if we could get it within a year, because maintenance costs are going to become an issue.
If you're looking to replace engine 2 or engine 3?
So are we doing the 745 or the 785 money?
You have 785 for engine 3, but that's out.
And I think that's
2 years,
escalation.
that's up 2
To be
years.
quite honest, I
That's
think
out to
escalation.
FY25.
That's what?
It's an escalation. It's the same price.
It is the same price.
It's the same price, but in 3 years, it's gonna be more. So they told me it could be $35,000 more today. I was chucking with them. They said, you better figure on 700,000 plus 35,000 on top of that before you get the truck. That would get us to 735, we get 745.
So is it possible we get it at 735? 35? We don't know.
No, like you were saying, Gary, and this is just for my information, actually, knowing nothing about fire trucks. If it's a year out to get this, do we get it at that price?
We try to get a commitment, yes.
Yeah, okay.
There are escalation clauses on it.
Right.
But the sooner we order it, the sooner we can lock down the price.
Okay.
Okay. And
So, go ahead. No, go ahead.
well, I was jumping off of that one, going to something else. So do you want to continue
No,
with that?
yeah, this
All
is a
right.
funding source question. When we were in Capitol 2 years ago, and you guys will probably remember this, there was a bond repurpose of $140,500. Is that accounted for anywhere in here?
Not specifically in here. We know we had that $140,000 available. When we start to borrow things, we'll figure out how to use it.
Because there were specific purposes that it could be used for. And when we voted on the capital plan back on March 4th, 2020, because I've got the data right here, we had voted to replace Forestry 1 and to use a combination of that bond repurpose and a capital exclusion of $75,000. That was what we had voted, but it never made it to town meeting. It was removed before it went to town meeting.
Really?
No.
Yes, really. There were a lot of things that were removed before town meeting that year. And that was one of them.
So if I may, Forestry 2, the rear end fell off from underneath it last spring, early summer. It's sitting in the highway garage and it is out of service.
Anyway, okay, so that 140,000, we know about it and we're gonna use it the best way that we can. Right?
Yeah.
If you could use that, can you pull the forestry into this year since we're down a truck?
No, I'm thinking more of it as we borrow less.
Oh, okay.
And we put this maybe towards the first payment on that. Or I don't know, but what I'm saying is if it can be used to our advantage, we should. But there were specific things that it could be used for.
Yeah.
If I remember right, because of the way the bond was written originally. I don't have all the details as far as this goes.
Can you actually just take it if it's already written in the bond to be used for something, to put it somewhere else?
It can be repurposed.
It depends upon how it was written. I mean,
yeah, I know a lot of times capital money has to be used for what it was specific intended for. Yeah.
If it said, if the capital warrant article said to buy a fire truck,
right,
you could probably use it to buy a big truck, a little truck,
right.
But if it says to buy a such and such and such and such pumper, you probably couldn't use it to buy a ladder truck.
Right.
It depends on how the warrant.
And also, it never actually
So
got
that's
there,
something that
so
we
it's
should look
still,
at.
But could it
it's
be,
also still there because
Well,
we
I
never even
think-
went to warrant. So.
I think there's somewhat two conversations. One is, do you approve the purchase through borrowing of $745,000 in this coming year to replace engine number 2? The second piece of this is, as we work through this, now how do we fund it? I'm going to fund it from borrowing, and if we can offset that borrowing with that $140,000 that's left over, absolutely we will.
Yeah.
The good news is you don't actually pay anything in FY23 on a borrow, because that borrowing note starts to get paid in FY24.
Okay.
So there's no direct expense this year.
So you're thinking of hanging on to it for
Gary's saying it could take a year plus to get it delivered. It might even be longer. The question is, will he get the support and then the okay from the voters to place the order?
Right.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
I think Veronica pretty much doesn't want to borrow the 700,000 if we can put 100.
No, I'm just
something
saying that
thousand.
we should look at that and use it where it makes the most sense, is what
well,
I'm saying.
well,
Geraldine, go ahead.
okay, I have a very quick question. As we have the 140, let's say we have the 140, why couldn't we do the forestry and the car?
Well, it depends on what the bond is, what it's written for.
So if I may, if the capital plan, the selectmen, and the powers that be could say to me, Gary, this is what you've got to work with. We haven't done any capital mechanical improvements in years. And if that was the case, I could come back and say, I can get this truck to satisfy my forestry needs. I could trade this, I could do that to satisfy the car 2 needs. And then we just focus on the engine at whatever, when it comes, if we can get the agreement to place the order.
Right.
And you won't be paying for it, as Ross said, for at least a year.
A year.
You're comfortable with the fact that your forestry truck is down and
Well, that's what I'm saying. This forestry truck is down and
you have enough equipment, obviously, to cover that down truck.
That's forestry
not
1.
really.
Where is forestry 2?
It's not on here.
Okay, so you do have another forestry truck?
Oh, you have 3?
You have 3. Okay.
you're down to 2.
All right. So at least there is something.
Okay.
Well,
Mike-
how old are those other 2?
What's up?
How old are the other 2?
Forestry 1 is in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s.
Okay.
Forestry 3 was a gift from the military. I'm going to put that in the same.
Same vintage.
And forestry, that's forestry 3. Forestry 2 was 1950s.
Oh, whoa.
Really? That's an antique right there.
Stop talking about it.
So Mike,
Really?
let me just see if Mike has any questions. Mike, do you have any questions on the fire progression through the capital?
So I don't, Veronica. It's also too where I want to mention that I am an active member of the fire department, so I do know the needs of them pretty intricately, and want to make sure that there's no conflict of interest with me talking with capital planning and being on the department as well too.
I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Ross is shaking his head. It's fine.
You can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
is
not
not
an
for you
elected
personally.
board, so.
Yeah.
Right. It won't be in your driveway, Mike. So I guess it's
Yeah.
okay.
I
All
hope
right.
they're not in my driveway. Let's put it that way.
Can I speak?
Sure, go ahead.
The only other thing that I'm just questioning about the car, if we can't do it that way. Whereas the chief leases his vehicle. Is that an option or not?
I'm not a fan. Maybe someone can convince me otherwise, but I'm not.
No, I'm not, I'm just
But
asking,
I
Gary.
think as far as funding, I would personally, now that I've had conversations and sat in the driver's seat, so to speak, the last 6 months, I would replace car 2 with a truck, a pickup truck that could be used to bring hose back from a brush fire.
That makes
from a
more
house
sense, doesn't
fire.
it? Yeah.
They could go out and do their testing on it. We could put our own plow on it if we needed to. If we could buy it through the municipal funding, I think we could probably save a little bit of money there. And
You might.
What is it? What is it now?
So,
Gary? What is car 2 now?
it's an expedition.
Oh, it
It's
is,
an
yes.
SUV, yeah, it's an
You'd be
SUV.
better off
so
probably.
you're probably better off with a truck.
Yeah, at least a 250.
You know, we were looking at trucks for some other department too, and I think it probably would be a lesser amount, maybe.
From the municipal buying program, it is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So in a perfect world, I would ask you if you could, I was going to ask you for 2 engines and try to make the case, but if you said you could repurpose that bond and know that you're not going to have to pay for the engine, and we could get it ordered, maybe we could take care of the forestry truck, the kind of 2-piece, and not use a full 145 and get the order placed on the engine as well, and then let the COVID distraction get the engine here when it can, but at least get it tied down.
Okay, so this is what I think. I think we should tentatively move the 75K for Forestry 1 into this year, based on whether or not that bond repurpose can be used for that. If it can't, we move it back to FY24. And we keep the replaced 1995 engine at 745K, and we keep the replaced car 2. And everything else stays as projected. So,
but replace car 2 with a truck. Replace car 2 with a truck, though, right?
Well, he doesn't have to put that here. He's just replacing car 2. He doesn't have to say.
Yeah, but you don't want to.
You don't want to.
You want to keep it pretty open as to what it is.
We, in the fire service, a car could be a person, she could be a person. Whether it's a car or a pickup truck, that's fine. It won't be an engine, but it'll be this.
Right. Okay. I see where you're coming from.
So it's a vehicle.
It's a vehicle, right?
Oh,
okay. I got it. I was just trying to make it just
I'm
clearer.
assuming that's it. So what we're doing here is 745 borrowing, 55 replacing the car, and Ross will look into that 140 bond, and if it's possible to use it to replace forestry, the 1995 forestry, then just move that up to this fiscal year from the next fiscal year, if it's possible.
How long would we borrow that for? How many years?
We had quotes on 7 to 10 years.
7 to 10?
How long do they last?
Well,
we got one
this
that's
is
25 years old.
And I enjoy Ross, and I enjoy our conversations. Yeah. And we had a conversation about a truck, and I said, "You're going to give me $1 million, it'd be nice." And he said, "Okay, find a cheaper truck." So, and I would expect that. But if in my world, I would look at these trucks to say, what has the longest longevity? Right. And that truck would put it at the 700,000. Could we buy a $500,000 truck? We could. But then the answer to your first question, you would struggle to get 20. At this level of a fire engine, you should get 30. Or maybe
good.
A little bit more.
Oh, okay. I just didn't want it to be, they're only good for 10 years. It'd be like
a stainless steel frame chassis versus if you buy a steel and metal frame chassis.
How come they don't make one out of like composite or something?
That is a question for another time.
Okay.
Right.
Let's go on and get these, these what ifs.
Yeah.
We just need to get this done. So,
Yes.
All in favor, I'll leave.
Well, do we have to know whether it's 10 or 15 years? I think 15 years is too long.
Because that's sort of a financing issue that will work out
at finance.
Well, secondary to this, it's probably something that will work out with the treasurer collector. Most likely, she'll do a ban for the first year and look at combining with other items the second year. If it makes more sense, but it's also a market condition that I don't think you need to worry about. Our debt level is going down, so we have the ability to pick up some debt.
So let me just ask, Mike, do you have any more questions?
I do not.
All right, so is there a motion to put forward the replacing engine 1995, whatever number it is.
Number 2.
Engine number 2. And replacing the 2007 car. And then if it's possible, fund-wise, to move the 75K for the forestry into FY 2023. So is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor? Roll call vote. So Chris, start with you.
Chris Nosella, aye.
Gerald Mazekas, aye.
Mike Verosco, aye.
And Veronica Cal, aye. All right.
I just have another question before we go. Now that we've already, we're still looking at that 140 and what we can do with it, correct? Okay.
Well, that's part of the deal.
That's part of the deal, is the 140.
Yeah, for Ross
Right,
to
to
look at
find
that,
out.
because
Okay.
if that doesn't work out somehow,
We have to
then
come back
we
to-
just put the 75K
Well, we're
back
gonna do
in that
something with
way.
that 140.
Okay.
It won't sit there collecting dust.
Right. So,
I'm a believer that if the town's raised money, the town's gonna put it to work, otherwise
It's useless.
we put it back where it came from.
all right, so, anyway, so it's there. What I don't know is, can you take 75 from it? Or do you have to use the whole 140 or blah, blah, blah? Because the item
Or
that we were
maybe
using
apply
it
it
for.
against the 745. You know,
Yeah,
I was planning to fund the car 2 for 55 out of free cash.
Can you put the two together and save your free cash? I don't know.
That's what I wanted to do.
yeah. So just look at it, Ross, and then we can figure that out. That's what I think, anyway. Okay, so that takes care of fire EMS.
Okay.
And we've already done CONSCOM. So we have Chief Sartell here, so should we look at
Thank you.
police?
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Gary.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't have a lot on there. The narrative, I think, explains my issue, right? We just have this leftover scanning project, Veronica, that you and I have been talking about for a number of years. Other than that, I really can't.
Wait 1 second, hold on, so that you guys can hear.
Yeah.
All right, go
I
ahead.
Okay.
apologize.
Oh,
No, oh, no,
we do.
No,
Go
that's
ahead.
fine. Go ahead.
Oh, I don't have a lot on the capital planning. One is, and I think I've spoken with you, maybe all of you individually at some point, or I'm inundated with projects that don't really have the time to really bring them across the finishing line. But that said, Veronica and I have been working on in conceptual terms, this scanning project where I scan some records. It's actually part of the capital plan in terms of, we'd like to do some minor renovations at the station in the future years, not too far. The better uses of the space, and part of that would be freeing up some space in the building, would also help me exponentially when it came to records management. I think it's articulated fairly well in my narrative about it. Aside from that, I just pushed everything out for the outline of years. I would also like to just ask the board, and both boards really, to respectfully think about keeping my cruiser rotation funds for those leases in my operating budget. I really want to speak on that with a pretty solid conviction. That would be a major issue for me and for the department, should that be outside of my operational budget in terms of risk. There's an enormous risk should it not pass or something along those lines. We'd be in the middle of a lease. I'm not even really sure. We have an appropriations clause, but that said, it would be a significant operational impact should that ever be jeopardized. So I appreciate the way the board has done it this last lease. I think we made good on the promises we made when we went to this program of stabilizing the cost, and I would respectfully ask that we continue to fund it in the way that we have up till now.
Can I speak on that?
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay, it's an ongoing occurrence. You're correct.
Correct.
It belongs in your budget.
Thank you, appreciate that.
So I will just say that 2 years ago, it should be on the capital plan, though. It should be reflected there with the funding source being the operating budget.
No, I agree, and I think you and I have spoken about this at length. They are capital items, there's no question. I think in the broader scheme of things that this would factor into our capital planning. However, I think that because of the volatility of removing that, we would not be able to do our jobs. That keeping it in our operational, budget makes more sense as much as my gasoline bill or my electrical bill, to be frank.
Well, here's the thing. I absolutely agree that having it in the operating budget is advantageous. I do think that if we're at the point where we can't balance the budget, but we can do it out of free cash or another funding source outside of the operating budget in order to keep the operating budget balanced, I'm okay with moving it out for that reason.
I actually we had talked about this, and depending on free cash to do things like this is not a good idea. It's something we can't get used to doing, I think you said, or it's not the best way to use capital planning for free cash money to depend on how to keep the budget working. That's not the best way to do this, is the way I understood it.
So I think all of that is correct.
Yeah.
You don't want to fund ongoing operating expenses out of free cash because there's no guarantee free cash will exist next year.
So you don't think this would actually be part of that?
With that said,
yeah,
and Jay and I've discussed this, and I don't know that we disagree yet because I haven't made up my firm decision. I fully respect the idea, and I've seen this done in other towns. If they replace 1 or 2 cruisers every year, it's an operating expense.
Right.
The odd years when you replace an extra one, it becomes a capital. I fully understand that for him to do his job, he needs his patrol office and he needs his patrol cars. And without one, he can't function.
Right.
So the cruiser is an operating expense. It made sense to put it in the way it was presented.
Right.
Earlier this week, we were facing a $750 million budget deficit. I've done some juggling, and we're down to $490,000 budget deficit, which is a huge improvement.
Absolutely.
It's not zero. I've got to get it to zero to avoid a Prop 2.5 override. Moving $70,000 out of operations into capital, funded through free cash, helps.
Right.
It creates the problem next year when he has a budget that said, I'm looking for $70,000 for lease payments on my cruisers. Do you add that back into his budget? His budget will show a significant increase, even though you know why. Making it a capital item makes it more susceptible to someone saying, I don't feel like I'm not going to vote for it.
Yeah.
Which could happen in an operating budget. Someone could say, I'm picking on line number 381, I don't want to pay for the police cruiser. I mean, it could be pulled out. I think it's less apt to be. So Jay is 100% right in why he wants to do this. I'm suggesting maybe not because I'm got a funding.
Yeah, in addition to those things, the having to sell the leasing plan and project doesn't lend itself well to sound bites. And Veronica and I have had extensive conversations predating our time on the select board. And she has a solid understanding of it, but it does take a few meetings with me and sitting down, breaking it down as to how this works. I'd hate to have to make that sell job twice every year in front of town meeting when tough decisions are being made. I think they're much better served in an environment like this, where I can actually bring you data to explain it at a deeper level. Making that sale, it just seems dangerous to me, and it is so pivotal and so complex, so fundamental to my job that it would be very disruptive.
And if this was to buy a new car this year, I would say maybe we keep it as capital because we might decide, hey, you're just going to have to run that car extra miles and take the chances of maintenance. But this is a lease payment. So this is a decision that was made last year, and this is to get the funding to pay for this year's lease.
Well,
so we're in a bit of a bind as far as if town votes no.
Will they have to give the car back?
Well, I have a question
that would
on
be
that.
Scary.
Because from capital 2 years ago, it was $59,655 for a 3-year lease, FY20, FY21, and FY22. But we're looking at FY23. The amount is more, and it's no longer the first year of a lease, which is what I would have expected for FY23.
Yeah, last year. So we, in fiscal 22, which we're now, we have the first payment of my new leases are already in my budget. What we're talking about is fiscal 23, which represents the second lease payment. And the supply chain issues and the issue sometimes becomes that I had to play fortune teller in a sense, that I actually had to put these numbers together 2 years ago before the leasing period kicks in order for me to go through the process. So this payment for fiscal 23 represents the second payment. First payment is this year.
FY22.
FY22. 22, 23, and 24 are a leasing period.
Okay, so this is incorrect then, that the lease period prior was FY20, FY21, and were the leases renegotiated?
No, we've only had one, and it would have been fiscal 19, 20, and 21. Yes, 19, 20, and 21. We made our last lease payment in 21 for the cars that we now own outright, because it's leased to own. It's not it's not a true lease as you would conventional sense. So the lease that I'm negotiating right now, we have the funds to pay for in 22 is my first payment, and now we are all together talking about the second lease payment. So again, the next year we'd be going back exactly as Ross represents. We'd be coming back again for payment 3 of these.
I can't say that.
Well, I'm good with it being in the operating budget as long as we have a balanced budget. If we don't have a balanced budget, then in other words, for me, having a balanced budget trumps having it in the operating budget.
So in other words,
It's cleaner in the operating budget.
yeah, it's cleaner that way, but we do have the free cash that we could.
If it avoids an override.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So how do we do that? Do we say,
Because
Make a motion.
I think one, you approve the expenditure,
yeah,
Right.
and I will have been instructed that we will leave it in the operating budget if the budget is balanced. It turns out if I can't balance it, then I would
we taking it out of
take
free
out
cash? Okay, I'm good with that.
And I can't guarantee you I'm going to get balanced. Now we've come a long way from over $1 million. Yesterday it was $720,000. Today it's $490,000.
So by Friday, we'll have extra money.
That's what we're hoping.
Well, there is some town administrative magic, which I can't disclose to you.
That's fine. It's your job.
Part of that would be shifting something from raised and appropriate to free cash. And there's very few things that you can do that for.
Yeah.
Right.
And capital purchase is one of them. And I have 2 challenges. One is to fix this year's budget, and 2, to leave Townsend with a budget for FY24 that will work.
Who said you leave it?
And
I know.
respecting and agreeing with Jason, if you move this into free cash, it makes next year's budget more difficult.
Right.
And I don't want to unnecessarily
doing the math. That probably is my 3%.
I don't want to dig a hole for it that makes getting out of that hole, FY24 harder than it has to be. So if you go ahead and you vote the expenditure for this year and you agree that it's raise and appropriate if the balance is budget, if not, it's free cash or some other magic, that will work.
Yeah, okay.
And stay tuned to May 3rd at town meeting to find out what the answer is, because it will probably be close to that time when we know.
All right. It's not in here in this, but it is in this, unless I'm missing
it. Yes, it's not on the 5-year plan, because it's showing up as.
But shouldn't it always be on the plan, but with a funding source of operating budget?
I would say yes.
That's the purpose of the capital planning, was to put out a 5-year plan, if I'm correct, Veronica.
So it's at 70K, and we can just add 5 to that across the board, or the lease is fixed for that time period?
The leases are fixed for 22, 23, and 22, 23, 24. So the $70,000 would be fixed. The actual number will be available next year for sure, but it will be fixed at that number, which I'm asking for 70. Would be no more than 70 next year for sure.
So I should put that number in the FY24 column.
Yeah, I think in the spreadsheets that I had, I think looking out.
70,000 again?
Yeah. I think looking out at the next lease.
How many cars are we leasing?
4.
Oh,
it's
4 for
200.
7.
Yeah, it's $220,000 worth of cars.
Yeah.
If you were projecting though and doing the same voodoo math I had to do last time, we're looking at increased interest rates, which I had to get my application in Monday because it's like, if you don't get it in Monday, I can't walk in late. It's that volatile. In addition to the supply chain issues, and I may have purchased our last gasoline vehicles. We're looking at hybrids at the very least, and more than likely in 3 years from now, we may be looking at all electric. So I did in my capital plan that I submitted to you, the next leasing period, I think I bumped up to 8. But the first part of that is solid. The out years are not because it's fluid and how we meant for it to go.
Okay, so this is an aside. I'm moving away from capital here, but there's an opportunity for an electric vehicle charging station. And the question is, what's the location? And I had said here or the library, and what I responded today to Vinny. Now, I don't imagine here, because if we can't put a bike rack here, I doubt that we can put an electric vehicle charging station in a historic district. So, I mean, we couldn't put a bike rack in the town hall parking lot. So would we be able to put an electric vehicle charging station? Probably not. So my second choice was the library parking lot. But should we have done it at the police station?
I would put it in the police.
I say no only because we've got some significant parking issues as it stands.
Okay, I didn't think you guys had much room. And I was thinking along the field behind the library.
Right. Yeah, back in there somewhere.
Back in there somewhere was where I was thinking.
And if we ever did need it for police usage or what have
you would just go down there and plug it in.
Not a bad idea.
Does the town get a break on electricity from Unitil?
No. Are you kidding?
Well, then, you know, here's why am I asking that? Because it's common sense, Veronica. What it costs for fuel for gasoline as opposed to paying a bill that might be significantly more expensive.
We'll put quarters there, so you have to.
Why are you making fun of that? Do you even think about shit like that?
Well,
seriously,
is a charging station for public use and a charging station for municipal vehicles, such as
police. We get there.
Yeah,
I think when he goes to the point of going all electric, that purchase includes installation of a charging station at the police station.
Right? But you can get grants for that.
Yes, and again, we're talking the outer years, but that is exactly what's materialized.
Right.
I do think we had talked before, I thought it was at the capital planning level of bundling electric costs with other communities was in its infancy from Massachusetts or something, I remember.
Yeah, I can fill you in.
Yeah, so you may want to check.
Yeah, I'm just concerned because I think everybody thinks electric is cheap. But it isn't, because it still costs fossil fuels to make it. If that's what your goal is, not to burn fossil fuels. I've worked in power plants my whole life, Veronica.
Okay.
I know how they work. Everybody thinks electric's this great deal. You still need fossil fuel to make it. The more electricity you use, the more fossil fuel you burn.
All right, I shouldn't have.
Well, I'm giving you facts that you don't know, obviously.
But here, records management project, we had that as well. And for funding of that, you have free cash, Ross.
Yep.
So I am in favor of that. I think we should have that for the Hart Library as well. And I don't know, is that under facilities?
It was
disposal, documents, and preserve historic. And did that make it to the funding side? Yes, it did.
In the free cash side.
Yeah. So the rating score is 3. So I guess if anything has to go, those would be the 2 to go.
Yeah, I kind of figured we've been sitting in those documents for years. If this comes worse, another year is collecting pigeon dust and whatnot. It's not going to be the end of the world, but you could change the priority. I took the liberty of putting priorities, 1 being highest priority and 3 being you can wait.
Right. I thought we actually on one of our earlier meetings talked about that and thought it was a good idea.
We did, and it's a good. I do think it's a good idea.
Yeah,
I mean, these things won't go away if you don't do them.
Yeah.
So
and free up an awful lot of space too, from what I understand.
It would.
Yeah.
Looking at this for the police department, then we have the records management software project, scanning old documents of $35K. The cruisers at $70K for this year. For next year, we have the 2nd floor bathroom and comm center records, same sort of scanning project.
It goes hand in hand. It's not, it wouldn't be, the scanning would have already taken place to free up the room to then do this project. So that.
Okay, we'll talk more next
Just a
year.
better use of the space.
And that's all we have other than cruisers moving out over the 5-year period. So I guess we, Mike, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Okay, so I guess what we need is a motion to fund the cruisers, ideally through the operating budget, and fund the records management project if there is free cash available after we go through funding everything and get the budget settled.
There still is as of today. When I've funded everything I think I need to, it's $188,000 left in free cash.
That's good.
Which is what I would suggest keeping, but I'm going to find ways that we need to spend it. So,
okay. So, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to keep the police cruisers in the current funding that it is facilities in the chief's budget. And I'll go for that first. Are we doing these separately?
Why don't we? Because that motion is there a second?
Second.
All right, so I think unless there's any further discussion, okay, roll call votes.
Gerald Mazik is yes.
Chris Nocelli, yes.
Mike
Verosco, yes.
Veronica Kell, no. And the qualification is that if it's needed to be in the operating, out of the operating budget in order to avoid an override, I would prefer that, but that's what
I think we all do, but that wasn't really what we were.
All right, so that passed. What about the records management project? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion if we have the money to pass it.
Free cash.
If not, from free cash. If we don't, we won't.
I'll second that.
All right, roll call votes.
Gerald Mazik is yes.
Chris Nocelli, yes.
Mike
Verosco, yes.
and Veronica Kell, yes. All right, I think that's it for fire. I mean, for police.
Yeah, police.
Sorry, for police.
We got fired, huh?
So that leaves us with facilities and highway and water. So let's go to where first? Let's go to facilities. All right, in facilities, we're looking at a new 1/2-ton pickup truck for the facilities department. So that means their own vehicle instead of using private vehicles. The exterior repair of Memorial Hall, which is trim and paint. The rec hall windows, that's replacement at $30,000. Dispose old documents and preserve the historic documents of the old library at $60,000. And exterior repair at the Harbor Fire Station. Green energy. And then looking at further out for other years, energy efficient heating system at Memorial Hall for FY 2024, window replacement at the West Townsend Reading Room in 2024. And that's all that's on the capital budget. So I guess my question becomes, I'm looking at the Harbor Fire Station here. There are some things that you can put on green energy and some things that you can't. And there's an energy committee meeting tonight. And one of the things that they're talking about is hopefully having all these projects that are green energy projects that the grant the town has now completed in time to do the next green energy grant in October, because you can't have two, you have to have one completed before you can apply for
How much money they have left in that, do you know?
There's a off the top of my head, no, but if
Okay.
you go to Energy Tonight, you'll see.
Yeah.
And it's for specific projects. It's not like they have money left to do.
No,
things.
I figured that. I didn't know
Okay,
what has been done. And
so
what's left
I
to do.
guess for me, the rec hall windows, I would wonder if that could be part of a green energy grant, because aren't windows
They are.
part of that?
Mhm.
And I would say the same with the, for next fiscal year, the window replacement at the West Townsend Reading Room.
Mhm.
And also, I know that the energy efficient heating system was on one of the line items for last year for the grant that didn't make it into the grant.
That probably could be in that also.
So if we're doing a green communities in October, I would think that those three things could be things that could go there.
Right.
I agree.
So that's that.
So I should possibly take them out of, I think, free cash, which is where I tend to put them.
The rec hall windows, yeah.
Mhm.
I'm sure they need them, but I put it there. I think that the rec for this year, and I know these have been completed already, the weatherization at the rec center and LED lighting upgrades and controls at the rec center have happened on the current grant, the one that was approved this summer.
So that leaves the windows, right?
So now the windows, and I would want to explore that for the grant application process in October, which means they wouldn't get replaced until like
Right.
next summer.
Well, all right, so that would be the West Townsend meeting room, right?
Mhm,
The rec hall,
mhm.
in here? Is it here?
No,
No,
for
that's-
here, it's an energy efficient heating system.
That's
Okay, so what was the
that's for
third
next
one,
year.
Veronica? I think I
The
missed it.
energy efficient heating
Oh,
system
okay.
here.
All
So I
right.
think we're just taking 30,000 out of this year's, which is free cash, because it's
Yes,
rec hall windows. You want me to keep it listed, just show it as the funding source, it's green energy?
possible. I would
Anything
say
to do with
possible
grants is tough.
funding
Yeah.
source. I don't know. I would move it to next fiscal year and put it in line with the heating system and the window replacement at West Townsend Reading Room. I would move it to the next fiscal year.
Okay, well, it's great, I'll take 30,000 out of free cash.
So is that
Yeah,
24 we're talking about?
Yeah, all of them will, all the energy things will move to 24.
yeah. And then we can look at those for green energy. If we don't get them, then put them on the capital for next year.
All right.
Mm.
The exterior repair at the Harbor Fire Station, I know is something that was requested before, and I think that's a maintenance item more than anything.
Yep.
Well, does it belong to, who does it belong? It belongs to the fire department, right? It's a fire department building?
Well, you have
I
to,
mean, is
you
it
have to weigh,
what it is?
but what's facilities
Oh, okay.
versus what's
All right.
fire. And when I
Okay.
think of fire, I think more of the equipment
Right.
than the building.
Than the
right?
building,
I
okay.
know.
And this is an operating station or an
Yeah.
activation station?
No,
It's
this
the
is
operating
one.
station.
That's the one in,
They've had
Fountain
a
Alley.
funky wall for a while.
yeah,
Forever.
it's basically a corrugated building. I think it's starting to rot.
So anyway, so I would keep that there, the exterior repair. Then there's the old Harbor Fire Station. There's 20,000 there. What's that for?
That's the one that the forest,
The DCR
The
truck is in.
DCRs,
um,
they're leasing that.
I was down there at that building.
It's old.
It's terrible.
You need to take a shower after you come out of that building. There's one wall that needs to be painted, but when you look at it, all the clapboards are gone because of the way it's water's leaked. So I think this roof, clapboards, clearly it needs a new heat system. It needs to be painted inside.
I
This
thought they could've-
20,000 is just an exterior to keep the building sound,
Yeah.
not to make it a comfortable.
I thought they could put a heating system in, the people who are renting it now.
They put in a burner system. I mean, they
Oh,
replaced a burner
Okay.
in the furnace. So
All right.
it's the same old system. I wouldn't do anything interior. I would just do exterior stuff to keep the building from getting worse.
Mhm.
When I met with the Forest Service down there, I said, I heard rumors you're moving out, you're not moving out. You guys need to tell us
What you
in
doing?
the spring. When we know what they're doing, then the town can decide what we're gonna do. If they're leaving,
We need to fix it.
do you fix it?
Is that one of the historical buildings?
I believe so.
I threw out the suggestion that maybe if they leave, we just tear the building down, and I had people look at me with very crossed eyes, so I don't make that comment.
Gee, I know that feeling.
Yeah.
But the town has a bunch of these vacant buildings. The town needs to look at each one of them one at a time and say, what are we gonna do with this? What's the use? And then what do we have to do to make it fit that use?
So
I put the Old Harbor Fire Station in the blurb that I need to send to Glen Eaton today. It's not the end of today yet, for the comprehensive economic development, strategy or whatever.
But this is clearly something that should be a facilities versus the fire department budget.
Right.
The fire department.
Yeah, this
has
is
nothing to do
definitely
with,
facilities.
wow. Is there something somewhere we could get a grant from some historical place that would help us with this?
Well, there probably is, but someone has to look into it.
Don't we have a grant writer?
It's not the grant writer's job. It's a historic district commission's job, or whoever the historic.
Well, and that
someone
building
who-
apparently is complicated because apparently it's on private property as well as some town property.
Oh, is it really?
So it's not going to be a clean cut decision on what you do and how you take care of it.
We have a 15-hour-a-week grant writer who is very busy right now. So.
Oh.
I encourage the town to get together and figure out what to do with each of these buildings, and maybe it's a separate group for each building, but
right.
Otherwise you're gonna have an eyesore that's just gonna fall apart and not
Kind of like
gonna.
the old
Don't we
church.
have a building committee group that does look at buildings or
There's a town property committee.
town property?
Properties,
Well, maybe they need to look at it. No.
maybe they do. So.
I'm not a fan of putting money into that building until we really know what's gonna happen. Especially knowing that only half of it's on our property.
Well, I've asked the facilities to come up with a plan to keep the buildings from falling apart.
Yeah.
Don't necessarily make them functional, livable, but.
Doesn't have to be the
don't
Taj
make them
Mahal.
deteriorate. I mean, if you can clean them up enough and put good paint on them, at least they won't look like an eyesore on main thoroughfare through
Right,
towns.
yeah. It's tough.
Okay, so we're looking at a pickup truck, replacing and painting the exterior trim and paint. Now, my question for that is, if we're replacing windows, so we're not doing them here, right? We're not
No, we
replacing
pulled-
windows here.
Excuse me, we pulled windows out of that line item.
Yeah,
Okay,
you did already.
okay, so in any event, okay. So let's, doing the trim and paint for Memorial Hall. Rec windows are moved, 60,000 for the old documents and repairing the Harbor Fire Station wall. And then the old Harbor Fire Station. So that's what we're looking at. And is funding source all free cash on this?
Yes.
Well, I know you have the truck in 2, but I would give the truck a 1. We're
Yeah, they need
fortunate.
something.
We're fortunate that he came with the truck. I mean, if he came with a sedan, we wouldn't ask him to be putting rock salt in the back of his car.
So do we want to vote these singly?
That I think is a good idea.
All right, so is there a motion for the pickup truck?
I'll make a motion that we buy a pickup truck with the understanding that
Is this
that
a
it comes
lease or a
with-
price?
No, this is a
by the
price.
way?
We will.
I don't know where you're gonna get a pickup truck for $37,000.
He's actually found some, maybe through the state bids.
Yeah.
He's pulling out a lot of the features that,
Right.
Yeah.
That you don't need.
He
He
doesn't
doesn't need
need
a Bose here and there.
And I think he's
Right.
actually got some numbers that even are better than this.
Is there a
Very
second?
nice. Second.
All right, discussion.
I'm good.
The only thing I request is that he make sure it fits the vehicle policy for green communities.
Well, I
because
think any
we
of the
don't want
newer
to lose that designation.
I would think that the newer vehicles probably do, Veronica.
I think they do too.
Yeah.
But
Is that
I'm
like
not
a- is
certain.
that like
Just-
a flex
He
fuel?
doesn't necessarily have to have an 8-cylinder. He can have a
No,
6-cylinder.
he's
Oh, no.
quoting a 6-cylinder.
So, well, yeah, that's
and
even
it's
better.
2-wheel, 4-wheel, and there's different,
Right.
mile per
Right.
gallon
Yeah.
requirements. That's all.
Mm.
All right, Mike, any questions?
I don't have any questions on that one.
All right, so ready to vote, roll call vote?
Do we make the decision that not to exceed 37?
That's inherent in your vote because what.
Okay, then they'll just make a vote.
37.
Is,
Right.
Yeah.
right,
That's it. Okay. I'll make a motion to,
you've already
Mike,
made the
we already
motion.
did.
already did. I'm
And
sorry.
then Chris
Seconded.
seconded
Yeah.
it, so we just need a vote.
Gerald Mazekas, yes.
Chris Nocelli, yes.
I get so wound up in
Mike.
my thoughts here.
Mike Verosco, yes.
And Veronica Kell, yes. All right,
So there's $6,000 in his operating budget for his car allowance. I will figure it'll take a couple months to get this, so I will
Right.
reduce the 6,000 by some amount.
right, that sounds good.
Leaving probably enough for 3 months.
3 months sounds.
Probably.
Thank you, Chief, for.
Thank
Very
for
well.
Thank you.
attending.
Thank you. I'm available if you need anything.
All right.
24/7, right?
You know, I'm friend. So does my wife.
I
Thank you very
bet.
much. Good night, guys.
Thank
Thank
I
you.
know.
Good night.
Thanks for coming, Jay.
You won't.
Okay, exterior repair of Memorial Hall.
It's a beautiful building. I can't see this going to waste just
No,
for some paint.
absolutely
Uh,
not.
paint and trim, 20,000. Okay.
Well, there's a lot of trim on here.
Oh, yeah, there is.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd make a motion to approve the 20,000 out of, is that coming out of free cash?
Yes, sir.
Out of free cash for the repair of Memorial Hall paint and trim.
Is there a second?
second.
All right, any further discussion? All right, ready to vote then? Geraldine will start
Gerald
with you.
Mazekas, yes.
Chris Nocelli, yes.
Mike
Mike Verosco, yes.
and Veronica Kell, yes. We are moving the rec hall windows to the next.
24.
All right, energy efficient, dispose old documents and preserve historic documents at the old library, 60K.
I think we should do that too. That'll free up a ton of space because you guys said there's like boxes and boxes,
Yeah.
boxes of stuff over there, right?
Hopefully at some point we can fix that. building.
Yes.
But I think the first step is to get.
Get
the
rid of
check out.
it, get rid of the stuff inside, yeah.
There's these boxes, there's a whole couple pews worth of old key cam stuff that they can throw away, but we need to get an effort to do these documents.
Yeah.
I've had someone come in and look at it. They would help sort the ones that can be legally disposed of, then they would index everything else, and then they would digitize and copy.
Is this a company or a person?
It's a company.
A company?
Frankly, I wouldn't send a town.
No, I wouldn't
employee
either,
over
but.
I've
That's
never
why I asked
actually
you
been
what the
in,
company
so
was.
is that bad?
Oh, it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
All
there.
right,
You're gonna wanna take a shower after you go to that building.
Oh, another
You like to shower out of all that buildings, don't
You're
you?
gonna, that's one of my budget items here, is you're gonna put
The new
A
shower.
new shower in the
a
office
shower
for
in
the.
town hall.
that needs to,
So when I bike up here, I have a place to change.
Well, we'll just have them turn up the water in the urinal. You just stand in front of
The
the
fresh.
You'll be all
all
set.
right, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to preserve the documents and get rid of the unnecessary things.
Well,
All right,
It's the documents is the cost, the TCAM stuff is a separate.
All right,
item that-
okay.
that was the 60.
okay, is there a second?
Second,
All right, all those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Mike Verosco, aye.
And Veronica Cal, aye. Okay, so that takes care of that one. The exterior repair at the Harbor Fire Station for 10K.
Well,
Needs it.
so is that the one that's half on the town property and half on private
No,
property?
No.
No, that's the
this
one
is
next to the ice cream.
operating fire
That's the one next to the
Oh,
ice cream
ice
factory.
cream. Oh, no. Oh, okay. Oh, all right.
That's the real fire station.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
the,
Versus the
The one
Wait a
in the
minute.
harbor?
this one says harbor.
The Harbor Fire Station.
Yeah.
And then there's the old Harbor Fire Station.
So
So we're talking about the harbor.
What is this?
That's
is
the old Elm Street.
Elm
fire
Old
station.
Elm Street versus the Center Fire Station.
Oh, they want to repair that one?
No, we're not even talking about that. Don't even go there, Chris.
Oh.
Let's concentrate on.
Jesus. I thought we were talking about the
Harbor
Well,
Fire
you know, I
Station.
think, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
All right, so, and that's 10K, and I know that this was
Yep,
was
2 years ago.
requested 2
Right.
years ago, so I'm
Right.
sure it's becoming desperate.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Make a motion to repair the Harbor Fire Station for $10,000 coming out of free cash.
I'll second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chris Gonzalez.
Jared Bezikas.
Mike Roscoe,
And
aye.
And Veronica Kell, aye. Did we do motions on that? Did we do?
I think, yeah.
I
Yeah, Chris
motioned
did,
and
Chris did.
Terry Lynn.
Okay.
Second it.
Yeah, okay, so that,
I'm usually better at writing.
yeah, so that
Okay.
basically
Right.
takes
Confusing
care of
after a while.
facilities.
Well, one more is the
One more.
Old Harbor Fire
I
Station.
am not in favor of putting money into that until we know that they're actually going to stay. And that we cannot get money out of that, the people that are supposed to look at this stuff, the historically, you said?
Do they pay rent?
Well, it might be town properties.
Yeah,
They don't pay rent. I thought they were supposed
I thought
to.
they leased it, no?
I think the
Do
lease,
they pay rent?
you can correct me if I'm wrong, Russ, but I thought that in exchange for using it, they were to maintain it somehow.
Well,
Yes,
The fine print here.
they need you product. I think if you approve this, we're gonna go back and then try to get the DCR to do some of this. They claim they had people coming down to plan to paint it because that's what it really needs from the exterior.
right,
But because of the lead and the condition of the clapboards, they said the project was too big for what they wanted to do. This maybe should be added, it's exterior repair of this thing. All I'm trying to do is make it not look
Right.
like an eyesore.
mhm,
The interior and the furnace and the lighting and all
right,
that needs to be done, but that's, I think it's done when you know what's gonna happen to it.
right.
So
In the
that's
meantime,
lead
let's
paint,
keep it looking somewhat presentable.
and that's lead paint.
Is it being removed or covered?
Remediated, how's that for measles?
That's not good. We have to know.
No.
I know.
It has
about
to be addressed.
I know
Well,
about lead.
I mean, some-
Lead paint mediation is expensive.
Oh.
20,000 isn't gonna cover.
It's a
If you-
small building.
If you take the
Very,
clapboards,
very.
if you take the clapboards off versus like smash them, if you take them off and dispose of the lead covered clapboards, that's not too extreme.
That's cheaper.
If you think you're gonna chip them and create dust, that's another problem. I saw one building where they came in and they crushed it with an excavator because that's how they get rid of your trash, and that made
That's enough.
I know.
That's
a
bad.
mess. But something needs to be done to keep that building sound from the outside. And I'm guessing you're not gonna determine the use of that for a year or more, probably longer.
Do they still have a lease on it or they're leased up?
Oh, yeah.
When's your lease up?
They're still there.
No, but I mean, do they have a lease for another year, 2, 3?
I don't know when the lease is up.
I looked into that when I was down there.
I don't know.
They're not sure what they want to do, and I told them, well, you gotta make a decision, because we're gonna do something to the building. But even if they leave, I
Yeah.
think you want
Still
to
need to
keep
do
the
something.
outside solid and clean it up so it looks presentable. And this is on Main Street, Townsend.
I understand. I understand.
It is. Okay, so is there a motion?
I'm not motioning that. How about you, Jerry?
Well, we're gonna do something. I'm concerned too about the lead paint.
Mm.
Um,
If it just needs to, if we can just go in and paint over everything and make it look pretty, it's fine.
You can't.
If you have to take that lead paint off,
Well, the problem is the clapboards are rotten,
yeah,
which means the clapboards come off.
They're gonna come off. So
Which
how,
is- which
is it
is-
rotten all the way up, I hope?
You gotta watch
One
Mass
wall
State
by
law.
the
on that.
entrance where there's a roof overhang and the water has then gone down the siding versus
course,
switch.
yeah.
Unless they change Mass State law. Once you do renovation, which would be changing plywood, you have to get rid of all of the lead paint.
Isn't it just where you're working, not the whole building?
Mediation. Once you go into renovation, you have to bring it up to code, which would be removing all the lead paint.
Thank you.
Bringing up to code is if you do more than 50% of the value of the property.
If you put a clapboard on that building, it probably brings it up 50%. Come on, let's be realistic here. If you can figure out a way to get around it without putting us all in prison for having a building that was illegally done.
My concern, are they staying or not staying?
I can't answer that.
Can we ask the building inspector?
Okay, do we have a motion, and let's get this voted one way or the other,
all
because
right.
we don't have the answers, so.
Well, then I don't think we should vote on something we don't have answers for.
I mean, some of this, we won't do this until we can answer those questions.
Well, I don't want to see it on a warrant and then find out that, oh my God, we got to take the rest of free cash to mediate and remove all that stuff.
If we can't do it right for 20,000, we're not going to do it.
Is that how it's
Okay,
gonna
so
work?
that's the top of it, 20.
Okay, yep.
So
You're up,
if
Skip.
it comes back and says we can't spend more than the 20 speed.
You can go down, but you can't go up. Isn't
Okay.
that the theory?
Well, that's the way it works with capital. You can't spend more than what. you
Right,
appropriate.
That, not the
Correct.
whole budget. It's what
Okay,
Right.
Terry, you're up.
All right, I will.
Why don't you?
I make a motion to put $20,000 towards the exterior repair of the Old Harbor Fire Station. And take it out of free cash. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mike. All right, roll call vote. All those in favor, starting with Geraldine.
I'll stand if you want.
Yeah, no, yes.
I'm voting no.
So Geraldine, you are yes.
I'm a
Chris,
yes.
You're no.
Mike
Okay.
Verosco, yes.
And Veronica Kell, yes.
Good. Look at that.
All right. All right. We have highway and we have water, and Ross has 8 minutes. So let's do water because I think that one's pretty quick, correct?
Oh, wait a minute.
The water department's got a whole bunch of stuff.
Well, they do, but
Comes out of this.
I think that water comes out of the enterprise fund. Is that correct?
correct.
With the exception of 2 of these. So if you look at the installation of the Main Street Wellhouse generator and of the Cross Street Wellhouse generator, those are coming from ARPA funds.
Okay.
So we can leave that on the capital list, but the Board of Selectmen has already approved those
Okay.
as coming out of ARPA. And then there's decommissioning and reforesting. I think it means foresting. The Main Street well field for 30K. A fusing machine for water mains, 25,000, and a 36-inch wide scanner copier. And I think that's it for their FY 2023.
Well, there's the online bill payment system, but they don't have a price for that. And there's also the Witches Brook Harbor Trace treatment plan, which I think is coming out of the big grant. And Harbor Trace, Witches Brook and Harbor Trace. Those may be the 14.9 million that he's got a warrant article for.
I thought the 14.9 million was for the Harbor Trace treatment plant. We've already put the money in for the engineering for that. It's a combination of approved at special town meeting and some from ARPA funds. We had put some ARPA funds towards that. So the engineering, and then what I saw last night is that you have to, at town meeting, have said, yes, we're going forward with the treatment plant in order to be eligible for the 0 interest loan. Is that correct, Ross? I think there are rules about that. in that document that he gave us.
Okay.
So, so the treatment plants, the 2 treatment plants, TBDs, I would hold off on those.
Yeah.
Unless he's going to fund them entirely through enterprise.
Did you say
We can't put a TBD number in the capital plan.
Right.
Understood.
So.
And the installation of the generators, you said, is coming out of something else?
That's coming out of ARPA.
Okay. So
We've already approved that.
Yeah. So
No,
we
they
don't have
did
to worry
that a
about
couple of years ago too, and we told them if they didn't put a price in there, we couldn't do it.
I would not vote
No.
for the online bill payment system,
Hmm.
the Harbor Trace treatment plan, or the design the Harbor Trace treatment plan. I thought that was
I thought it was
money.
already designed.
I thought we put money for that.
ARPA funds, right?
It's a combination of ARPA and town meeting. We voted a special town meeting. I think we did 130 from there and 70 out of ARPA, because we had already put 200,000 out of ARPA towards that. But because town meeting allocated 130, then the ARPA funds were only giving 70, and then they asked for the generators. If I'm remembering right, I'm remembering right on this. So that's the Harbor Trace treatment plant, but it says.
Is that just a water treatment plant, or is it going to be water and sewer?
It's
Water.
water.
Just water?
Water and sewer are 2 separate things.
Are they? Okay. I didn't know.
They are.
And they can't be the same
Yeah.
plant.
Okay.
Design the Harbor Trace treatment plant, TBD. I don't know why that's TBD. I thought we already did that, but maybe I'm wrong.
I will ask Dave.
All right, so I think right now we can vote on decommissioning and reforesting the Main Street well field for 30K. So is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
And is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Mike?
Mike Verosco, aye.
And Veronica Cal, aye. Okay, do we need to vote on the installation of the 2 generators? Just to have them on the plan there? Yeah, let's do that. All right, so let's do one motion for both generators.
I'll make a motion that we do the Main Street wellhouse generator and the Cross Street wellhouse generator.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Mike?
Verosco, aye.
And Veronica Cal, aye. All right, so then we're going down to the fusing machine for the water mains.
I'll make a motion that I don't even know what a fusing machine is, but
Connects the pipes.
okay, for the water mains.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Gerlin?
Aye.
Mike?
Mike Verosco, aye.
And Veronica Cal, aye. And the scanner copier, 36-inch scanner copier.
I'll make them.
I could like to make a discussion on that one. How many of these are we gonna buy in the town?
More than one.
More than one? Why does it need, every department need one? They're expensive. Is it cheaper to put one in, just say, planning? Or what do you call it? Building department somewhere, right? And then because I know that planning users needs one to do plans. I know the water department needs them.
Well,
I know that.
Why can't not water, but why can't planning board and building use the same?
That's
so
right.
That can be discussed, but I don't
Yeah.
think they asked for a $10,000 scanner copier.
I just.
In either, but this is for the water department.
Right.
And they're a separate building, and I would certainly support this.
I would too. I'd second that.
So, all right, so motion for the scanner copier was Geraldine, and Chris, you seconded it. Discussion was.
Actually, Jerry Lynn seconded.
Was it Geraldine seconded?
No, I
Yeah.
didn't. Did I?
Yes, she did.
I thought
Okay.
Veronica.
Who did, was it you,
I
Chris?
thought you made the motion.
I'll
and I
second it. I'll second it.
Oh, I made the
She
motion.
Oh,
made the
there you
motion.
go. Oh,
I
that's
seconded
wicked.
it.
Okay.
Okay, that's,
Yeah.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Chris, are you in favor?
No, I am not.
And Mike?
I'm in favor.
You
Aye.
are?
Yeah, aye. Mike Roscoe, aye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I think that is it, other than the TBDs. And I don't know what to do about the TBDs.
We had that a few years back.
Mm.
And we did not recommend them. We asked them to come up with a figure. You can't come on town meeting floor and say, I want. You
Yeah,
have
and
to
want
say,
something I don't even know what's gonna
"Well, this is
cost.
cost." You can't do that.
Okay, so that takes care of water, leaves us with highway. And we get highway done in -2 minutes. It's 5:30
sure.
bus, just so you
They're
know.
all ones,
Russ,
right?
I'll back up first because we're real tight.
Okay, so what I want to know is funding on these.
What's coming out of their budget? What is it?
Well, it won't come out of their budget, it'll come out of
This
free
is all,
cash.
this is all, yeah.
Wow.
How much free cash do we have left?
Now, did you put these all out of free cash? So actually,
No.
we still
No.
have. Well, I mean, it says they are.
No, go
It
ahead.
says
Ross.
137,000 for free cash.
The only thing is the dump truck.
And the dump truck, I'm just gonna borrow that.
Okay. And that still leaves you with 100 and something thousand in free
I
cash?
think 188.
And
close-
we
that's
didn't
close to my
fund
wish.
something, we didn't fund the windows, so that gives you 30 more, so over 2,200.
Good. That gives me my wish from the beginning.
Well, I can't guarantee.
So far.
I won't use it so far.
So
but
far, yeah.
That's a number that I would feel comfortable because it leaves the town some room in case
Yeah.
something comes up in the fall.
Yeah.
That you have to fund that you don't want to open the
Right.
tax rate to.
Yeah.
And there probably won't be any room left in the tax levy to raise and appropriate something in the fall.
Right.
So keeping some free cash. is
So
good.
it gives us a baseline, and then the free cash from FY22 will be recertified again, correct? And so there could be more there.
That's right. They never spent any of that money.
But-
That budget we did, that was beautiful 2 years ago.
Well,
Yeah, water treatment plant though they've got to come up with a figure for that, because doesn't that have to go this year?
yeah, I think there's a warrant article
Is it a warrant article for how
I-
much?
for
Okay, so
14 million.
if I can push you to a vote for the F550 4x4, 80 grand.
Is there a motion?
Oh,
All right. I'll motion to, you want to do those all at the same time? Or you want to do them
Let's do
individually?
the 3 free cash ones. So
Yeah.
the,
The F550 4x4 dump truck with plow, the asphalt hot box, and the SS dump body replacement. I'll make a motion that we pay that out of free cash.
okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Right.
Fine.
Mike?
Mike Roscoe, aye.
And Veronica Cal, aye. All right, so, and then the question becomes for the new 6-wheel dump truck with plow and sander for
240.
240 to be borrowed.
Is that like a lease type thing, or you
No.
just borrow money to pay it straight out?
I will determine that at game time determination.
Okay.
So,
Probably a lease, but
Yeah.
because it's got a shorter lifespan than
Right.
like a fire truck or something.
Yeah.
We'll make that decision when we get there. I'm counting leases and borrowing as sort of the same
Oh, okay.
concept.
All right. I'll make a motion then to have $240,000 for a 6-wheel dump truck with plow and sander to come from borrowing
/ leasing.
/ leasing, whichever works.
second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Jolyn?
Aye.
Mike?
Mike Roscoe, aye.
And Veronica Cal, aye.
Woo-hoo.
So that takes care of it, right?
Yep.
We are all set then.
Yep.
So are you gonna write up the capital plan? You have to submit to the, yes. Never mind, I'm done. I got my
I'm going to
answer.
update the capital plan based on your votes, and I will
Alright.
turn it over to the finance committee. That's your question.
And the Board of Selectmen, the Board of
And these
Selectmen
are
has
the
to
two.
vote it too.
Yeah, are we meeting again together or not?
We can.
Do
No,
you need to?
do we need to?
No, we just voted on
We
a
just
capital
voted it.
plan.
Oh, the capital plan, capital committee, capital, no, we do not need to meet again. This would be, yeah, we just voted on the 5-year.
And it will be officially released from
And
the
that is-
capital planning committee.
Yes, all right.
Do
So
you
it's,
make a presentation at town meeting, or do you stand up and say, yes, we supported them, or?
usually the board, this gets submitted to the Board of Selectmen,
Yeah.
and it's the Board of Selectmen who present the capital plan. Is
Okay,
what's
and
happened in the
Do they
past.
ask for an opinion of the capital committee as part of the discussion?
They never
think
have.
Never have.
Do you want the warrant to say, supported by capital planning committee?
Yes. I
Absolutely.
think you can.
And the one that was split, we can put
Provided what, no, the one that was split? No,
Yeah.
that's a positive vote.
Yeah, the only
Yeah.
one voted no was me, and
And
Veronica
me
voted
on
no.
the two
Oh,
that
okay.
we
Those
weren't
passed.
unanimous, so.
Yeah.
oh, that's right.
Doesn't really matter, it passed.
The
So
way it's happened in the past, Ross, is that the Board of Selectmen take it and then they together, and the Finance Committee looks at it. And it's usually the Board of Selectmen that puts forward the capital plan.
yeah,
That's the way it's happened in the past, and it hasn't always matched what the capital committee did. So you have it.
Okay, and
There's rules about
the
this.
items that the selectmen pass forward, I will put down that these items were voted and supported by
Yes.
the capital plan committee.
Right.
I think that's.
and possibly by the finance committee
So it'll
someday.
come to us for the March 15th meeting, correct? If you have those edits done.
Somehow it will.
Okay,
And
that
I'll
sounds
look forward
good.
to it.
Perfect.
I will
All
never
right,
take
is there a
that
motion
back.
to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure.
Yes,
All
sir.
right, thank
Have a
you.
good week.